Hello, I am Michelle Hannah Fields, and I will be your host for today's episode of Hope, Health, and Healing, where we continue our interview with one of my very best friends, Elicia Gordy, and her sister, Brandi Pugh. This is part 2 of a 2-part series, so if you missed part 1, go back and listen to it. You will be glad you did. But in this episode, Elicia talks about how when she met me, she just saw how much peace I lived in, and it was something that she desperately wanted. And she talks about how to live a life of peace. It takes surrender. I know that you will be encouraged by what Elicia shares, so sit back with your favorite cup of coffee or beverage of your choice and let Alicia's story and message inspire you today. I remember what I was going to say a minute ago. So we had known each other just, I don't even know if we'd known each other a year. And I remember standing in the parking lot of the church and you just say, Michelle, when I'm around you, I sense peace.
It's wild you bring this up. Keep going. I have something to say.
And you said, I've never experienced that in my life. And I love that, and I want to know how you do it. And yeah. I said, well, it's nothing to do with me, but it's living, in the Word. It's having that life and, inviting God's presence into my life and into my home. And I've seen that in you. So what did you want to say?
So, literally yesterday, I was having a conversation. There's a pretty new special person in my life right now. And him and I were talking, and he said, you are my peace. Mm-hmm. And I responded and said, it's not me. Mm-hmm. And I told him the story of meeting you. And I said, I told her, I remember just having a jealousy, but in a good way, because I wanted what she had. I wanted what that energy you put out. I knew I didn't have it, and I remember saying to you, you're so peaceful, and this is what I strive for. On that day, if we'd asked anyone else, what is your desire? What would you want? All I wanted was peace. Mm-hmm. Because my life had been pure chaos my whole life.
From childhood.
Right. And I never really thought about peace or what it would look like, because we just accept this is how I am. I really struggle with that, to be honest, now in health and wellness, too. If somebody says, this is just how I am, no. Yeah. No, let's not claim that over yourself anymore. Strip it off. Mm-hmm. And so I just remember for the first time in my life meeting someone, which was you, and feeling peace just pour from you. And in that moment, it became my life mission. I want to feel that way, but I want other people to feel that way when they're around me. And so you talked about a pivotal point in my life. That was a pivotal point, because there's something about just having an awareness about something, even if it's something that simple. But that's not a simple thing. Peace is everything. And I'd never experienced it my whole life. So it was something that just stuck to me. And I was on a mission to create that in my life. And I knew, the only way would be through the Lord and, growing a relationship with Him in a new way. But when there's a lot, I could talk about peace throughout the years. But when I bought my new house in Ellerslie, I circled that property like a crazy person. I remember laughing at myself, thinking my neighbors are going to think I'm a nut job. But I just circled the property. I walked through every room of the house, the whole perimeter of the property, around the lake, everywhere, and just prayed and prayed. And I prayed for peace over and over. I just said, this is the bloodline. The enemy doesn't cross this line. I prayed for peace. I walked through my girls' bedrooms. I prayed for peace over where their headboards would be. This was before we even had furniture. I prayed for peace so hard over that home. And there wasn't a day or an event that someone didn't visit my house and walk through the front door and say, your house is so full of peace. I remember the first event we had there, I cried in the foyer, and that girl probably was like, who is she? And I was like, you don't understand what you just said to me. It was just a big deal, So for him to tell me yesterday that I am peace and that I bring him so much peace, I thought there's not, and actually his mother sent me a text after meeting me for the first time and said, you have the most peaceful soul. And I thought, these are answered prayers that I'm forever grateful for.
And that peace is not, you have to pay a price for that peace.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
You know, God paid the ultimate price by sending Jesus, and Jesus is peace.
Right.
He is the wonderful counselor. But there's a price you pay for living in that peace, and it is surrender. It's surrendering every aspect of your life to Him, and you know, spending that quality time with Him and inviting His presence in. And it's worth every bit of that. It's worth it to live in that peace.
Well, it's wild to sit here, and I know what he's probably thinking. He's told me that from the moment we met. My husband has told me that from the moment we met, and he said, we used to work together, but I would go in his office, and this was prior to us talking or anything, but once we started talking, he would say, I don't know what it is, but when you walk in my office, I just feel completely at peace. He's like, I don't know what it is, you just bring something calm. He still tells me to this day, you are my calming. Like when he's in a moment or when he's having a moment, he'll call me upset from work, and I'll just talk to him for a minute. He'll text me a few minutes later and say thank you so much. 8 years later, he still says that I am his peace and I am his calming person. It's crazy. It's wild because we grew up, I feel like so chaotic that we didn't even realize the chaos that we were living in, and our brains were chaotic and our lives were constant chaos. I mean, even way before, as teenagers, young children, it's just wild to think that you are that person after what you've lived in. And just going back to what you said, just kind of what you thought was normal. And it's not. It's not. Changing that and making things different for your babies, for your grandbabies. And it's wild to be living in it now, to look back on everything and just think, here we are. It makes me emotional because I made a video on TikTok, and it's just like, hey sis, look, we made it. Just to look back on everything that her and I have been through.
Well, and it makes me so proud of her. And I've had, years of a journey leading up to this, and I know this is super fresh even in the last couple of months for her, but this is where we just pull up our britches and reach back down in the fire for someone else. That's what it means to share your story and speak on the podcast and show up out loud on social media. It's not because we're proud of so many things that we've done and poor decisions, and there's so much hurt, and like Brandi said, but we can turn this, ashes to beauty. The Lord will do that when we surrender and not walk around with the weight of shame and guilt and condemnation. Those words aren't from the Lord. No. And so when we choose, and gosh, the power of just a decision, it changes your whole life. Brandi, obviously with the strength of the Lord, we can do anything through Him, and I've seen her do it. But had she not leaned into that, she would still be living in that heavy place. And not only would she still be in prison to it, she wouldn't be helping these people step out. And so I'm a visual learner, and I try to show up that way on my platforms. With what I went through, I don't talk about all of them because I'm proud of them or because I want to cast shade on anyone else that was part of my journey up until this point. But there's another little girl, or there's another mama, there's another single mama, there's a mama sitting in an abusive relationship today. There's someone who's battling addiction and doesn't want anyone to know, so she's killing herself in a rundown trailer like my best friend Michelle, because she doesn't think anyone cares. When you show up and share your story and share your voice, the Lord moves.
I had somebody message me almost immediately after the first time on TikTok that I decided that I was going to really just live my life out loud and be completely vulnerable. One, the chains that broke off of me that day, because I knew this is what I've needed to do for 15 years and what I've wanted to do. I have told him for the last 8 years, I am supposed to be doing something more with my life, and I cannot figure out. I was so uneasy with who I was, even though I was completely out of the chains of addiction. I was out of all that. Thank goodness I never faced anything legally, but I was out of all that mess, but I wasn't done, and I haven't been able to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing or where I'm going with this. But like she said, I do have such a powerful testimony, and I know that it's all in God's timing, because it hasn't happened for a reason. And maybe it took me getting 20,000 followers on TikTok for me to say, Brandi, now is the time for you to reach these people. And it was time,
basically overnight.
Yes, literally. It felt like it happened overnight. And then again, I was able to go live, and I couldn't, and then I had that breakthrough driving to Georgia, and I came back, and it was just like, I went live on a Tuesday. The first time I had 15 people in there, and on that Friday night I had over 800 people in my live. It was wild. So going back to what I was saying, when I finally decided, Brandi, now is the time to speak your life out loud. Now is the time to do it. You have followers, you have people that are coming to you. Within minutes of me getting off of that live, I had somebody message me. My name on TikTok is Mama B, and she said, oh my gosh, Mama B, just watching you over the last couple of weeks, I would have never known that you went through what you went through. She's like, you carry yourself so well, you speak so well. And they had already watched me for a couple of weeks before I actually came out and said anything about who I was. You don't know who somebody is behind a screen. You don't know what somebody's going through. People might look at Elicia and never know that she was in such a terrible relationship, the things that she fought and the things that she battled, because you look at her now as this strong, independent, amazing woman and mom that she is. She went through hell to be there. And it's just like showing up, people look at you and think, wow, I would have never known. And then they look at you and say, if she can do it, I can too. And it's wild to be that person looking back 15 years later on where I was at, living in houses without power, without water. My sister knocking on my door saying, I am not leaving this house until you come out and talk to me. To be sitting here and have people messaging me, telling me thank you, is wild. And it's what I've known I was supposed to do for the last 15 years.
And I think through having courage to speak about these kinds of things, like, grows grace in our heart. It allows us to have grace towards other people that maybe haven't been so kind to us, because they're forming opinions based on what they thought, what their truth of their perception of us was. So like she said, like, so many people can be really mean, and we can be upset. I mean, I've had people drag me through the mud based on complete lies or opinions that they chose to believe, but you find grace in your heart, and then you're not upset with those people because you know they just didn't know. And I think that's the importance, like she said, of sharing your story out loud, because if people watch a perfect person show up through whatever platform that you're using, and they see you as perfect, they're not relatable. So then they feel more alone and more in the dark and more in a hole and more not understood. When you say something like that, or you share something so vulnerable, and she gets all these messages, all of a sudden these people that she doesn't even know felt heard and seen. And in reality, that's what everyone wants to feel.
Yeah, it's so true. And, you know, I'm reminded of the scripture, Revelation 12:11, and they overcame him, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And so that's the premise of this podcast, is to give people an opportunity to share their testimony. And what I have found is, as you do that, it gives hope to somebody facing the same kind of thing you did. But it also is healing. It's healing for you as you share your story, and it's healing for them as they hear it. And, you know, you will see that throughout your life. And every time I share my story, I gain more healing from it. Every time I hear Elicia's story, I get healing for my story. Every time I hear you share yours, it gives me hope that whatever it is I'm facing, I may not be facing addiction, but I face shame and guilt too.
Yeah.
And so hearing you share that God is, breaking that chain for you gives me hope. Well, God will break my chain too.
Absolutely.
And, I think that's so beautiful that God created us for community. He created us for sharing our story and giving us that opportunity. And what it also does is it gives the enemy a black eye because he thought he had you.
Yeah.
He thought he had you stuck.
Yeah.
He thought he had you where you wouldn't speak. He thought he had you so afraid of what people would say and how you would feel and what you would say, how you would sound like, what you would look like. He thought he had you. But then when you start speaking it and coming out, it sends him packing.
Yeah.
There's a scripture in James that says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. And so I think as you step out in faith in what God's called you to do and sharing your story, it sends the enemy packing. He's going to come back. He's going to come back a little bit stronger. But each time you do that, you gain confidence.
Yeah.
You gain strength. You gain courage. Because you're like, you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And God gives you that strength and that courage. And then the next time you've built that, you have that foundation, and you're building your cathedral based on those bricks you're laying, and those bricks are ones that are built on God's foundation, and those will be so much more solid than the bricks the enemy laid in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, speaking of foundation, because you just reminded me of something. So I love the meaning of numbers. I'm always like, I know them, but then if I ever see something interesting, I'm like, what is the biblical meaning of this? Like, why do I continue to see this number? And my number this whole year has been 44. There's been so many things around 4 and 44, and I turned 44 in 2025, and so there's just been a lot of that. Anyways, 44 represents foundation, and that's just been running through my brain so much lately, because where one door closes, a new one is opening all the time. And if we have a true desire to grow and level up and serve, whatever it may be, always looking for that next door. And you're such a good example of that, Michelle. You're always stepping through something new, scared or afraid, you're doing it, leading the way for the rest of us. And so I just wanted to kind of speak that over you today, because you just said a word that has been so deep in my heart around the number 44. What you've created is a solid foundation, and it's bringing healing to all of us. Just before we started recording, I told you my head's not on straight. I'm forgetting to do all these important things and all these dates, and it's been bananas. Brandi can tell you, I don't know if I'm going or coming. And the enemy will keep, if he can't distract us, he's going to keep us busy. If he's got a way. The devil uses camouflage. You remember me teaching that years ago?
I do, yeah.
And so sometimes we're just so busy, I'm so crazy. And it's so, when we just need to sit down and get quiet for a minute. And honestly, we had to really work this time in right now, but it's been good for my heart. So thank you for allowing us to be here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank y'all for joining me. This is episode 1 of who knows how many.
1,400. Oh my God.
So at some other point, we'll come back together and let y'all share more of your story. And I'm excited for your podcast coming up. So when y'all have that in place, then we'll share it from here and let y'all come back on and talk about your podcast. And then we'll have more time together. But thank y'all for sharing with us today. And I know this is going to touch so many people, and we'll have part 2 next time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
Love you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hope, Health, and Healing. I know that Elicia has given you some nuggets of wisdom that you can carry with you in the next days and weeks and months, and help you see that a life of surrender does lead to a life of peace. And that's the life that Jesus wants us to live. He said, "My peace I give to you." Join us next time as my friend Lynette shares her faith story. She has a powerful testimony of how God brought her through breast cancer, And she also shares an incredible testimony of her and her husband Lee's ministry together. Be sure to like and comment on this episode and share our podcast with all of your friends and family. Thanks and have a blessed day.